Every single day you pull a winning lottery ticket. The grand prize is just another 24 hours of life. Billions of people win every day, but the system cannot pay out forever. We will show 6 documentary records that captured the moment of the loss. This is the cold, mathematical reality of death. If you are not ready to see this, turn it off right now. It is 2:14 a.m. on November 12, 2013, inside the primary smelting hall of a massive metallurgical plant in the Ural Mountains. The air inside is violently hot, humming with the heavy vibration of high-voltage transformers. A thick scent of ozone and burning carbon hangs heavy in the atmosphere. Fluorescent lights cast a sickly green glow over a sprawling grid of massive open steel crucibles. These heavy pots hold thousands of gallons of molten aluminum. This is a highly hostile industrial environment built strictly for heavy machinery, not for fragile human biology. High above this glowing grid, a 38-year-old senior inspector named Alexei walks along a narrow steel catwalk. He has walked this exact suspended path thousands of times over the past decade. He wears heavy fire-retardant clothing, thick protective gloves, and a standard industrial hard hat. His focus is entirely on the mundane routine of his job. He is visually checking the automated crust-breaking mechanisms on Crucible Unit 47. In exactly 20 minutes, his long shift will finally end. He anticipates the cold, fresh air outside. He expects to clock out, walk to his car, and go home to sleep. He is utterly confident in his footing. The catwalk consists of heavy graded steel panels secured by thick double handrails. It is a strictly engineered safety standard, perfectly designed to keep the soft human form permanently separated from the liquid fire below. But industrial safety is merely an illusion that lasts only until a secondary system fails. The mortal danger tonight is not the catwalk itself. The plant uses massive overhead exhaust hoods to continuously pull toxic gases away from the workers. Tonight, a localized mechanical failure in the turbine directly above Unit 47 has created a stagnant pocket of dead air. Carbon monoxide gas has quietly pooled directly over the walkway. This gas is completely invisible and odorless. It binds to hemoglobin in the bloodstream, effectively blocking oxygen from reaching the human brain. It does not trigger the body's natural choking reflex. There is absolutely no panic and no desperate gasping for air. There is only a sudden, overwhelming wave of heavy fatigue. Alexei steps right into this silent cloud. His world of future plans instantly dissolves into basic neurological failure. He stops walking. The massive industrial hall around him violently tilts. He reaches out blindly with his left hand to grip the heavy steel handrail. If he holds on tightly, he might just collapse safely onto the graded floor. But his thick leather safety glove lacks the necessary tactile grip. His fingers slide uselessly against the dusty metal pipe. The internal neurological disconnect is already finalized. His knees buckle beneath him. His center of gravity shifts too far forward over the edge of the walkway. He pitches heavily beneath the middle rail. The fatal drop takes exactly 1.6 seconds. Time seems to artificially drag to an absolute halt as gravity pulls a biological mass downward. The rush of blistering hot air roars past his protective helmet. Below him is a glowing, perfectly flat liquid mirror. The vat contains 15 tons of liquid aluminum heated to a staggering 1,120 degrees Fahrenheit. Because the human body is primarily composed of water, hitting liquid metal at this extreme temperature triggers a catastrophic physical reaction. Alexei heavily impacts the bright surface of the molten metal. Due to the extreme density of liquid aluminum, the human body does not sink into the bath. It forcefully strikes the surface. Instantly, the water inside his cellular structure flashes into superheated steam. Steam requires over 1,000 times more physical volume than liquid water. This sudden and violent expansion creates a massive concussive force. A massive geyser of superheated vapor violently erupts upward toward the catwalk, shattering the calm surface of the metal. The clinical outcome of this event is immediate. The extreme thermal shock causes instantaneous loss of consciousness. The central nervous system completely shuts down within milliseconds of the impact. Massive cardiac arrest follows immediately. The biological form experiences a fatal, non-survivable thermal trauma. There is absolutely no sustained suffering. The nerve endings are structurally compromised vastly faster than any pain signals can physically travel to the brain. The structural failure of the body is absolute and final. A thick cloud of white vapor violently hits the dark ceiling of the massive facility, triggering automated hazard sensors. Then, the violent physical reaction quickly settles. The heavy metal surface smooths out once again, returning to a calm, glowing pool of liquid fire. The unyielding laws of thermodynamics are satisfied. The massive smelting process continues without a single interruption. The electrical transformers keep humming their low, indifferent tune. High above on the narrow steel walkway, everything is completely silent. Alexei's dropped clipboard lies totally flat against the metal grating. A single white page of his daily inspection log flutters slightly in the hot rising air. It is the only remaining artifact proving that a human being was ever standing there. July 5, 2011. It is 10:22 p.m. inside an automated car wash at the edge of town. After the final customer has driven away, a deep quiet settles into the long concrete tunnel. The air is cool and damp, a heavy mix of chemical cherry wax and wet concrete, and a low electrical hum comes from the main control panel. Water drips slowly from giant overhead nozzles, each drop echoing in the empty chamber. The machine should be asleep for the night. 42-year-old David Miller, the facility's manager, is performing his final closing duties. His only remaining task is to fix a minor jam. He wants to clear it, shut everything down, and go home. David has worked with this specific Ryko S90 tunnel system for over 7 years. He knows its sounds, its rhythms, and its quirks. This deep familiarity creates a powerful and ultimately fatal sense of control. Earlier, the massive vertical brush on the driver's side failed to fully retract. The official safety protocol for this type of manual intervention is rigid. It demands a full lockout-tagout procedure. A worker must kill the power at the main circuit breaker and then physically padlock the switch. This guarantees that no electrical current can reach the machinery. But it is late, and David is tired. He walks to the main console and simply flips the operational control switch to the off position. In his mind, the machine is now completely dead. He has made a critical oversight. A secondary low-voltage circuit that powers the vehicle positioning sensor at the tunnel's entrance remains active. This small optical sensor is designed to detect when a car's headlights break its infrared beam. It is the electronic eye that tells the system's computer a customer has arrived, which in turn starts the entire wash sequence. The system is not off. It is in standby, silently waiting for a signal. David grabs a heavy flashlight and steps confidently into the dark, damp mouth of the tunnel. His boots splash softly in the puddles on the floor. He is entirely at ease, moving through the belly of a beast he believes he has tamed. He walks about 30 feet into the narrow space, stopping right next to the motionless blue and white brush assembly. He kneels down, shining his bright flashlight beam into the complex metal frame, searching for the obstruction. As he sweeps the beam of light across the dark machinery, searching for the jam, the bright ray momentarily passes directly over the optical sensor at the tunnel's entrance. The simple, unthinking computer makes a fatal mistake. It interprets the bright, moving flash of light as the headlights of an incoming vehicle. It registers a valid entry. It sends the activation command. The response is instantaneous and brutally loud. Time seems to slow to a nightmarish crawl. A heavy metallic clank echoes through the tunnel as the system's magnetic locks disengage. The heavy steel conveyor belt beneath David's feet jolts violently forward, throwing him off balance. He drops his flashlight and stumbles backward against the cold metal guide rails. Before he can even begin to understand the catastrophic error, a deafening mechanical roar fills the chamber. The massive 10-horsepower electric motor of the brush assembly screams to life. The heavy cylinder, covered in thick plastic bristles, begins spinning at over 100 revolutions per minute. The machine blindly begins its programmed cycle. David is trapped inside an automated cage that has no awareness of his presence. The immense rotational force of the brush immediately snags his loose work shirt. It pulls him violently into the narrow gap between the spinning mechanism and the solid steel wall of the tunnel. The human body cannot withstand this level of industrial mechanical force. The rapid, violent interaction with the heavy machinery causes catastrophic, blunt force trauma. The extreme compressive force results in an instantaneous loss of consciousness. The central nervous system is completely compromised in the first second of impact, followed by a non-survivable structural failure of the upper body. Immediate cardiac arrest is the final clinical outcome. There is no struggle. The unfeeling machine simply processes the biological material with the same unyielding force it would apply to a dirty pickup truck. Completely unaware, the automated system continues its full cycle. High-pressure water jets erupt from the ceiling, soaking the empty space. Thick white foam pours from overhead nozzles, washing a car that isn't there. After 4 minutes, the cycle concludes. The deafening motors spin down. The roaring water stops. A sudden, shocking silence returns to the tunnel. The automated lights switch off, plunging the chamber back into near darkness. Deep inside the dripping, clean-smelling machine, David's drop flashlight lies on its side on the concrete floor. Its powerful beam cuts a single, unwavering line through the misty air, perfectly illuminating the now motionless bristles of the brush assembly. It remains as the only artifact of a man erased by a simple beam of his own light. November 14, 2012, a heavy machinery fabrication plant in Chelyabinsk, Russia. It is exactly 2:45 p.m. on a Tuesday afternoon. The sprawling factory floor is a massive grid of raw manufacturing power. The ambient noise level easily exceeds 90 decibels. The air smells heavily of sharp ozone, burned machine oil, and hot iron shavings. The thick concrete floor constantly vibrates beneath the heavy boots of the workers. Dozens of massive industrial machines are running simultaneously. They create a deafening mechanical roar. In the exact center of this chaotic environment stands 50-year-old machinist Ivan. He is a 20-year veteran of the plant. He knows the heavy rhythms of these machines perfectly. Right now, his goal is entirely routine. He wants to finish milling a massive steel cylinder before his mandatory afternoon break. He feels completely comfortable in this highly dangerous environment. This deep comfort breeds a fatal illusion of total control. He trusts his reflexes and his extensive physical experience. But industrial physics do not respect human confidence. The machine in front of him is a heavy-duty industrial metal lathe. It is a massive piece of equipment explicitly designed to physically cut solid steel. The mechanism is simple but brutal. It operates by tightly clamping a piece of raw metal in a heavy mechanical jaw. This jaw is called a spinning chuck. It features 4 protruding steel clamps that lock the cylinder in place. A massive 20-horsepower electric motor spins this heavy metal block at over 800 revolutions per minute. This translates to thousands of foot-pounds of torque. It is a rotational force engineered to peel away layers of solid iron as easily as a knife cuts through an apple. This specific older machine does not possess modern safety sensors. It has no automatic emergency shutoffs. It cannot detect biological material. It only knows continuous, unyielding motion. The ambient temperature in the massive shop is extremely cold today. Because of this, Ivan is wearing a standard-issue canvas winter work jacket. He has left the long sleeves unbuttoned and slightly loose so they fit easily over his thick leather work gloves. This small, seemingly insignificant wardrobe choice is the silent variable that will end his life. Ivan steps slightly closer to the spinning machine to inspect his physical work. He holds a precision silver micrometer tightly in his right hand. He leans his upper body directly over the heavy metal safety guard to measure the spinning steel cylinder. He misjudges the safe clearance distance by less than a single inch. The loose canvas fabric of his right sleeve briefly brushes against the rapidly spinning metal chuck. The protruding heavy metal locking jaws immediately snag the tough industrial fabric. The moment of convergence is terrifyingly fast. Time instantly dilates for the experienced machinist. In less than 1/10 of a second, the heavy canvas tightly wraps around the spinning steel axis. Ivan feels a sudden, violent mechanical jerk on his right wrist. His experienced brain immediately registers the catastrophic error. He instinctively tries to pull his arm backward away from the deadly rotation. He quickly attempts to plant his heavy, rubber-soled work boots firmly against the cold concrete floor to physically resist the pull. This is his final, desperate attempt at survival. But human muscle tissue is entirely useless against a 20-horsepower industrial electric motor. The machine does not stall. The motor does not slow down or hesitate for even a fraction of a second. The immense rotational force violently pulls his arm directly into the spinning axis. The heavy canvas jacket acts exactly like an unbreakable industrial towing cable. His center of mass is instantly dragged completely over the protective metal guard. The physical transition from a standing worker to a trapped object takes less than 2 seconds. The lathe aggressively pulls his entire body directly into the incredibly narrow clearance. He is pulled violently between the rapidly spinning steel cylinder and the heavy iron bed of the machine. The human skeletal structure simply cannot withstand industrial-grade mechanical compression. The rapid rotational velocity causes catastrophic blunt force trauma. The human body repeatedly strikes the heavy solid iron machinery with immense kinetic energy. This extreme physical displacement results in instantaneous loss of consciousness. The central nervous system is completely compromised within the very first violent rotation. Severe structural failure of the cranium and the cervical spine causes immediate death. Massive cardiac arrest is instantaneous. There is absolutely no prolonged physical struggle. The unfeeling laws of physics simply process the biological material with the exact same unyielding mechanical force used to cut raw steel. The machine does not care what it is destroying. Nobody else in the loud factory immediately notices the fatal event. The surrounding industrial noise completely masks the heavy impacts. The massive electric motor simply continues to hum loudly. The heavy steel cylinder keeps spinning perfectly at 800 revolutions per minute. The machine blindly completes its programmed cutting cycle without a single electrical fluctuation. The harsh, fluorescent factory lights reflect brightly off the polished metal surfaces. On the cold, oil-stained concrete floor, directly beneath the machine, Ivan's silver measuring micrometer lies perfectly still. It rests right beside a small, neat pile of freshly cut steel shavings. The unfeeling iron mechanism stands proudly in the center of the room, still spinning flawlessly. It remains perfectly ready to process the exact next piece of material. August 16, 2003, Christus St. Joseph Hospital in Houston, Texas. It is exactly 9:30 a.m. on a quiet Saturday morning. The expansive second-floor corridor smells faintly of sharp antiseptic and sterile floor wax. The ambient temperature is strictly regulated by cold overhead air conditioning. Rows of bright fluorescent lights buzz with a low, steady electrical hum. 35-year-old surgical resident Dr. Hitoshi Nikaido walks briskly down the wide hallway. He is a highly trained medical professional. His mind is entirely focused on his upcoming morning patient rounds. He holds a warm cup of coffee tightly in his right hand. He is moving calmly through an environment built explicitly to save and preserve human life. He completely trusts the heavy infrastructure of the modern hospital. At the very end of the hall is the main elevator bank. Millions of people use these vertical transport machines daily without a single second thought. The normal mechanical safety system is simple and seemingly foolproof. An infrared sensor detects any biological presence in the doorway, keeping the heavy doors safely open. A mandatory electrical safety interlock ensures the massive elevator car cannot physically move up or down until the interior doors are completely sealed. But elevator number 9 has a hidden, catastrophic defect. A few days prior, a maintenance crew performed routine electrical testing. They temporarily installed a small copper jumper wire on the main control board. This wire intentionally bypassed the primary safety loop. It tricked the elevator's internal computer system. The system now falsely believes the interior doors are completely closed and locked at all times. The workers simply forgot to remove the single tiny wire. The massive overhead hoisting motor is now fully capable of activating while the threshold is still occupied by a human being. Dr. Nikaido reaches the elevator bank just as the heavy steel doors of elevator 9 slide open. Inside the brightly lit cabin stands a female colleague. It is physician assistant Karen Steinow. Hitoshi smiles in greeting and steps forward to enter the car. He moves his right foot across the grooved metal threshold. Instantly, the heavy steel doors violently snap shut. They completely ignore the photoelectric safety beams. The thick metal panels aggressively pin Hitoshi directly at his shoulders and the upper cranial region. The sudden impact forces him to drop his coffee cup onto the floor. Time aggressively slows down for the trapped doctor. He instinctively tries to pull his upper body backward into the safety of the hallway. Inside the cabin, Karen desperately slams her hands against the control panel. She frantically hits the emergency stop buttons. She tries to physically pry the cold steel doors apart with her bare hands. They both naturally expect the doors to automatically retract like they always do. But the heavy metal does not yield a single inch. Deep inside the dark elevator shaft, the massive electrical motor receives a fatal, automated command. Someone on a higher floor has pressed the call button. The motor instantly applies thousands of pounds of upward rotational torque to the steel cables. The elevator car begins to move smoothly toward the third floor. It completely ignores the trapped human biology caught tightly in the narrow doorway. The sheer mechanical lifting force is absolutely unstoppable. As the heavy car steadily rises, the rigid upper frame of the elevator doorway converges directly with the solid concrete ceiling of the second floor. The physical space for the trapped human body rapidly disappears. The human skeletal structure simply cannot withstand this immense industrial-grade mechanical compression. The resulting blunt force trauma to the cranium and the upper cervical spine is catastrophic. The extreme physical displacement results in instantaneous loss of consciousness. The central nervous system completely shuts down in less than a single second. Massive cardiac arrest follows immediately. There is absolutely no prolonged physical struggle against the crushing weight. The heavy lifting machinery simply processes the biological obstruction exactly like it would process empty air. It does this without a single electrical fluctuation. The clinical cause of death is a fatal, non-survivable structural failure of the upper body. The elevator car continues its programmed descent for a few more feet. Then, the immense physical resistance finally trips the secondary emergency circuits. This completely freezes the heavy metal box in the dark shaft halfway between floors. The massive hoisting motor finally goes entirely silent. Inside the trapped cabin, the female colleague is left completely alone in the sudden, shocking quiet. She stares blankly at the closed metal panels. Back out on the brightly lit second-floor hallway, the scene is totally still. The automated hospital environment continues to operate flawlessly. The overhead air conditioning keeps blowing cold, sterile air into the empty corridor. On the highly spilled coffee quietly spreads across the pristine white tiles. It remains as the only silent artifact of a normal morning routine, violently erased by a single forgotten wire. November 8, 2010. A massive regional distribution warehouse in Tutbury, United Kingdom. It is a completely normal Monday morning. The enclosed building is incredibly vast. The temperature is kept permanently cool to preserve thousands of tons of dairy products. The air smells strongly of dry cardboard, cold concrete, and forklift battery acid. The smooth concrete floor spans the size of several professional football fields. Towering aisles of industrial steel shelves reach over 50 feet up into the dark ceiling. These massive metal cliffs create a completely artificial indoor canyon. Down in aisle 4, 2 experienced logistics workers are conducting routine inventory checks. They are operating a standard yellow electric forklift between the massive metal racks. They are entirely focused on scanning barcodes and fulfilling their daily shipment quotas. They move with the casual, relaxed confidence of men who know this heavy environment perfectly. They implicitly trust the towering infrastructure directly above their heads. The physical rule of high-density storage is based entirely on perfect balance. Millions of pounds of heavy cheese and dense packaged goods are stacked tightly on thin steel crossbeams. Gravity is constantly pulling downward on this staggering weight, but the rigid metal skeleton safely redirects that immense force down into the solid concrete floor. However, this massive system possesses a fatal, completely hidden vulnerability. An industrial steel rack is incredibly strong, but it is only as sturdy as its lowest metal leg. Over the past few months, minor, unreported forklift bumps have subtly damaged a single vertical support column. This specific steel leg has developed a microscopic internal crack deep inside the metal grain. It is currently holding vastly more physical weight than its damaged frame can actually support. It is a ticking time bomb of stored kinetic energy. The fatal event begins with a totally mundane, everyday action. The electric forklift gently places one final, heavy wooden pallet of dense product onto the third tier of the rack. The operator smoothly pulls the hydraulic lever. The machine reverses slowly. Its backup alarm beeps steadily in the quiet aisle. The addition of this single heavy pallet shifts the overall center of gravity just a fraction of an inch. It is the absolute final straw. It pushes the damaged base column completely past its breaking point. Time abruptly slows down for the two experienced workers. A sharp, echoing metallic crack suddenly rings out like a heavy gunshot through the cold air. They look up just as the towering steel structure above them begins to slowly lean forward. For a fleeting, terrifying second, they desperately attempt to throw the forklift into high gear. They try to quickly escape the narrow aisle before the heavy metal falls. They instinctively duck their heads. They naturally hope the heavy steel roof of the forklift will physically shield them from the falling boxes. But they are not facing a few drop pallets. They are facing an unstoppable, cascading failure of pure physics. As the first massive steel bay collapses, it violently dumps its thousands of pounds of cargo directly into the adjacent rack. This immense crashing force instantly overloads the next section. That section immediately buckles and falls heavily into the next one. A terrifying, violent domino effect accelerates down the entire 50-foot-tall row in a matter of seconds. An apocalyptic wave of twisting steel, shattered wooden pallets, and thousands of tons of heavy cargo crashes down directly into the narrow aisle. The workers are instantly swallowed by the unstoppable metallic avalanche. The physical reality of the massive impact is totally catastrophic. The fragile human skeletal structure simply cannot withstand the concentrated weight of thousands of pounds of industrial material. The heavy steel overhead guard of the electric forklift is immediately violently compressed against the steering wheel. The immense mechanical compression causes instantaneous blunt force trauma to the cranium and the upper torso. This extreme physical displacement results in immediate, irreversible loss of consciousness. Total structural failure of the chest cavity leads to instant cardiac arrest and rapid asphyxiation. There is absolutely no prolonged suffering or physical struggle against the crushing weight. The central nervous system completely shuts down before the deafening roar of the collapsing metal even stops echoing. The blind laws of gravity simply crush the biological material with the exact same unyielding force used to flatten the solid steel racks. The massive industrial system completely consumes the two men in a fraction of a single second. Finally, the massive chain reaction exhausts its momentum and comes to a complete halt. A thick, choking cloud of brown cardboard dust violently rolls across the brightly lit warehouse floor. The automated overhead lights flicker slightly before returning to a steady, cold electrical hum. The once perfect geometric aisle is now a chaotic, twisted mountain of shredded metal and crushed boxes extending for hundreds of feet. Deep beneath the impenetrable debris, the buried electric forklift remains completely motionless. The electrical horn of the crushed machine is permanently pinned down by a heavy bent steel beam. It blares a single, continuous, monotonous warning tone out into the empty, dusty air. It remains as the only silent artifact of two men completely erased by a single damaged piece of metal. July 25, 2013. The bustling industrial city of Goiânia, Brazil. It is exactly 2:15 p.m. on a bright, heavily sunlit Thursday afternoon. The urban environment is loud, aggressive, and relentlessly fast. The air smells strongly of hot asphalt, diesel exhaust, and baked concrete. A wide, multi-lane highway cuts directly through the busy commercial district. Hundreds of heavy vehicles move at high speeds, creating a continuous, deafening wall of mechanical noise. On the wide concrete sidewalk adjacent to the road, a 50-year-old man stands perfectly still. He is facing away from the chaotic traffic. He is casually leaning against a small painted concrete wall near a local gas station. He holds a silver cell phone tightly to his right ear. He is deeply engrossed in a completely mundane conversation. He smiles slightly, listening closely to the voice on the other end. He feels entirely safe. The raised concrete curb and the wide grassy shoulder provide a powerful psychological border. In his mind, these barriers physically separate the soft biological pedestrian zone from the deadly kinetic energy of the highway. He implicitly trusts the strict rules of modern traffic to protect his life. But the physical world is governed entirely by blind probability, not traffic laws. The fatal threat does not come from a bad driver or a sudden swerve. It originates from a microscopic mechanical failure miles down the road. In the far opposite lane, a massive commercial transport truck is traveling at over 50 miles per hour. The heavy steel wheels are subjected to immense rotational stress. Weeks ago, a distracted mechanic improperly tightened the heavy steel lug nuts on the rear left axle. Thousands of miles of constant road vibration have slowly stripped the metal threads inside the bolts. As the massive truck hits a small, imperceptible bump in the asphalt, the compromised hardware finally fails. The friction heat shears the metal studs completely off. A heavy-duty dual-tire assembly physically detaches from the moving axle. This massive wheel weighs well over 200 pounds. It is entirely composed of thick industrial rubber and a solid steel rim. Released from the truck, it instantly becomes a massive, unguided kinetic projectile. It retains the immense forward momentum of the heavy vehicle. It is now a rogue object, obeying only the laws of angular momentum. The heavy tire bounces violently across the thick asphalt. It acts like a giant gyroscope, staying perfectly upright as it tears across the road. It completely ignores the painted lane dividers. It miraculously threads the needle through the oncoming high-speed traffic, missing several speeding cars by mere inches. It rapidly approaches the pedestrian sidewalk. Time violently slows down in the final seconds of convergence. The man on the phone has his back completely turned to the road. The ambient roar of the highway completely masks the sound of the heavy bouncing rubber. He has absolutely no warning. There is no desperate realization. There is no chance to flinch or step away to safety. The heavy spinning tire violently strikes the raised concrete curb directly behind him. The sudden impact compresses the thick rubber, turning the heavy tire into a massive loaded spring. It violently rebounds off the curb, launching directly into the air at head height. The heavy projectile is moving at nearly 40 miles per hour when it physically connects with the pedestrian. The 200-pound spinning mass of rubber and solid steel strikes the man directly in the upper cervical zone. The physical reality of this impact is entirely catastrophic. The delicate human skeletal structure simply cannot process this immense transfer of kinetic energy. The extreme mechanical compression causes immediate structural failure of the skull and the upper cervical spine. The severe blunt force trauma results in instantaneous, absolute loss of consciousness. The central nervous system is completely destroyed in less than a single millisecond. Massive cardiac arrest follows immediately. The man is clinically dead before his body even hits the concrete pavement. There is absolutely no pain. There is no prolonged physical suffering. The biological machine is simply turned off without warning. The unfeeling laws of momentum treat the human head exactly like a fragile, geometric object. The violent collision barely slows the heavy tire down. It bounces off the victim, rolls heavily for another 50 yards, and eventually comes to a harmless stop against a distant brick wall. The heavy commercial truck continues driving for another quarter mile before the driver even realizes his axle is compromised. The surrounding highway traffic continues to flow at high speed. The passing drivers are completely unaware of the instantaneous death that just occurred on the sidewalk. On the sun-baked concrete, the man lies perfectly motionless in the afternoon shadows. His silver cell phone is shattered on the dusty pavement a few feet away. The cracked plastic screen still glows brightly. A tiny, distorted voice from his conversational partner continues to speak through the damaged speaker. It asks a casual question out into the hot, indifferent city air. It waits patiently for an answer that will never come. These deaths are not just tragedies. They are assets on a corporate balance sheet. To an insurance company, every life has a specific price tag. Now you are the adjuster. I want you to assign a cash value to these 6 deaths based on their shock value and public impact. Which death is worth the most for a news headline? Which one is the cheapest? Write your cynical price list in the comments below. If you can look at the world without rose-colored glasses, a like and a subscription are mandatory.